Hey guys, so today I just wanted to take you through my experience of job loss and what that has looked like for me. I know that a lot of us are going through it right now, so I don't know if maybe my experience, something I've either been through or are doing to help myself right now, might help others. That is up for you to decide. Before I go into the full nitty-gritty of things that I went through, and I won't go through every single detail, but I will go through the major highlights. There's just some background information that I feel may add some context to the situation. So the job that I was doing should have been earning over 6 figures in my area, especially for the amount of time that I was doing it. I never hit that mark. I never hit that mark. And my previous employer took full advantage of my naivete that I was being grossly underpaid for a very long time. And it took an outside person to inform me I was being grossly underpaid. And even with that, it was never brought up to where it should have been. Ever. Alright? So, even after I'd gotten a raise, because I fought for it. Moving forward, in April or May of 2024, my previous vehicle had finally reached its last legs, and I had no choice but to get a newer vehicle. Newer. I always buy used. I never get brand new. One, it's too expensive, and two, why are you going to buy full price vehicle when it easily loses half its value the moment you drive it off the lot? It just doesn't make sense to me. So I always have bought used vehicles, and only once did I do that through an actual dealership, which I swore after that I'd never do that again. I've had better luck with enterprise car sales because they sell, I think, the top 6 or 10% of their fleet, and you don't have to haggle, you don't have to deal with pressure. They don't earn commission from the sale, so they're not pressuring you or trying to upsell you. They're trying to help you get into a vehicle you can afford in the framework that you're looking for. And that's not me like advertising for them or selling for them. I'm not being paid by them to recommend them. It's just my own personal experience that I've had better luck with them for those reasons. And each vehicle that they've sold are under blue brick value when they sell it to you. Anyway, moving forward. So I had no choice. I had to get a newer vehicle to replace the older vehicle I had. At the time, I thought I was pretty secure because I'd been working in the industry I was in for since I was in my early 20s, and it'd been well over a decade. And it was a small business. They were always happy with the quality of my work, everything I did. No issues there. Come August of 2024, I started experiencing this severe sciatic nerve pain, which ultimately in January the following year got diagnosed as a severely herniated disc. But prior to that, I didn't know the root cause, and I had begun seeing a chiropractor to try to help with the pain, not knowing that the chiropractor hadn't taken imagery or were focusing their treatment in the areas that were of the injured section of the spine. They had never taken the x-rays of the lower lumbar, and I didn't know that at the time. But I was also paying for chiropractor visits and doing all of that, which were not cheap by any means. I want to preface this with I have never in my life had a good birthday. Anyone who knows what it's like to be raised by someone who is a diagnosable narcissist, and yes, there is a difference from just throwing the word around identifying narcissistic traits versus someone who is actually diagnosable. Okay? My mother is diagnosable per my own therapist because I have taken video of her and sent her to my therapist, and I'm like, am I crazy, or does she qualify for a formal diagnosis of NPD? She's like, well, I can't diagnose her. I'm like, I know that. She's not your patient. I understand. But I just need to know if what I'm seeing and what people are talking about is correct. And she said, just from the 4.5 minute video you sent me, she meets 97% criteria for a formal diagnosis. Let me just put it that way, and no, you're not crazy. It's like, not that you would be crazy anyway. I'm just letting you know. So this is from someone who's a trained professional. Okay, this is not me just throwing the word around. But I've never in my life had a good birthday. During the pandemic in 2020, of course, when those of us who were still earning an income did our best to help keep businesses afloat, knowing that a significant portion of the world's economy was being impacted by people who were not essential workers not being able to go to work. I was an essential worker. My mother was considered an essential worker, and she was able to work from home. So to help one of the businesses locally, she had gotten me a gift certificate during the pandemic for a massage because she knew that I would go for them on occasion, and the certificate didn't expire. So on my birthday of 2024, with me experiencing the severe pain that I said, you know what? I'm going to turn in the gift certificate and I'm going to go for the massage. And so I did. I was actually having a good day that day. And I will never forget how it went so wrong. I had taken a half day from work, used some of my PTO to leave early and treat myself for the massage. I went, I had the massage, I was feeling good, and I was actually having a great day for the first time in my entire life. That was my birthday. No sooner did I get home, my phone rang, and it was my former boss, letting me know that they had sold the business to a competitor, and that as of that day I was no longer an employee of theirs. But on Monday I would be onboarded as an employee for the purchasing company. All the relaxation that I had had and all of the positives that I had had for that day just went completely out the window. Also at the time, what I didn't know was my coworkers thought or assumed that I had taken the half day because I knew what was coming, and I didn't. So they were mad at me for a while because they thought that I was in the know. I didn't. I was shell-shocked. I already would deal with depression and anxiety on a regular basis anyway, so I felt like a bomb was just dropped on my head, and I'm like, oh my god, I have this car I have to pay for, I have my bills, my medical, all this stuff that I'm dealing with right now. I don't know what I'm gonna do, and it's like all I can do is see what happens on Monday. So the following Monday, the onboarding company that bought the company I was working for onboarded all of us as employees with at the time only guaranteed employment until the end of the year. They were hoping things would move relatively quickly for the transition and everything. But they were only going to be able to gauge that with time. At the end of the year, they realized that they had a lot more on their plate than what they realized. And we were told that, so far you're still employed, but we don't know for how long, but for right now, we'll guarantee you employment until April 1st. So I had another 4 months feeling like I had my head in a guillotine, just waiting for the day for the blade to drop. So I'm like, I have 4 months to deal with whatever medical issue I'm dealing with and get this fixed before I'm completely screwed. I was still pushing through the pain. I was using a crutch or 2 crutches every day, still going to work. I had to get mobility aids. I had to get things to help me move my stuff in and out of the house. Because I had stuff I had to bring with me to work at each day, and I was finding I could no longer carry bags because it was causing more pain. It was just like one thing after another. And in January of 2025, I was like, the chiropractor is not helping. It's not working. Let me seek a osteopathic surgeon. And I found one in my area who had expertise in treating and helping people with sciatic nerve pain. Went to them. I told them that this issue has not been being helped by a chiropractor, and I pushed for additional imaging. They pushed back initially saying, well, the x-rays we have aren't showing anything. I'm like, I'm telling you, this is getting worse and it's getting really bad, and I'm telling you that whatever's going on has not been being helped by the chiropractor. So they sent me for an MRI, and that MRI essentially once they looked at the images and saw that the lower lumbar was not x-rayed, proved that I had a severely herniated disc. And I had a follow-up appointment after the MRI. They told me what was going on. They prescribed me gabapentin to help with the nerve pain in the meantime. And then they referred me out to another surgeon. It took 6 weeks to get in with that next surgeon because their office kept messing up the referral and the other office wasn't receiving it. So it wasn't until about mid-March till I met with the new surgeon, all while I'm like, I'm going to lose my job on April 1st. Being in my mind. The following week after that initial appointment with the neurosurgeon, who was very confident he could fix the issue, but he had to send me a physical therapy first to get insurance to approve of the surgery. Because apparently physical therapy helps resolve about 70% of cases with a herniated disc. He's like, but I'll be honest with you, as severe as this is, I don't think it's going to help, but I have to do it and I have to send you first. I went, okay. So I started physical therapy with the instructions by him that if it was not helping or getting worse, to call and they would get me in earlier than they had scheduled the follow-up. Following week after that, we had another meeting with the purchasing company, HR, and everything. And I was extended until the end of 2025 so I could breathe. Because of the nature of the work that I was doing, I could finally catch my breath, and they were fully aware of the medical stuff that I was going through. Thankfully, the purchasing company, because the company that we had worked and dedicated our literal blood, sweat, and tears for years, did nothing with regards to severance pay or providing any sort of severance package for us at all. They got over $15 million for that business and they couldn't even do right by us. And that will never sit right with me. All because, well, the state of Connecticut didn't require us to do that. How about you had the ethical and moral obligation to treat those you deemed family? Because that's what we heard on a regular basis, and I will never trust any employer who calls us family again because of this. They offered us nothing. The purchasing company actually was the one that did right by us. They gave us an onboarding bonus, which helped financially. And they said that they would come up with a severance package for when our end time comes. And when they said we were either being extended or being let go on a certain date, they provided us that additional information. Some of my coworkers were let go on April 1st, but thankfully they were also given the onboarding bonus because they were still working at the time anyway. So that helped them, at least in the meantime. 3 of my coworkers in an office of 6, 1, 2, 3, 4. Sorry, 7 employees were let go on April 1st. So that meant the 4 of us now had a lot more work on our shoulders to make up for the loss of those people. Again, still pushing through it, still going in. But thankfully, the new employer had set me up with my own laptop for their company and were getting me set up with remote access to be able to access work on the old system and help them simultaneously on the new system, their system, because I think they had decided they wanted to keep me as a permanent employee long term. And I'll be honest, I have a feeling they want me to come back. It's just a feeling. But right now I had to do what was best for me. And I'll get into more of that information towards the end. But they had set me up with remote access, which I did not have previously. Well, even though I'd had the follow-up appointment with the neurosurgeon, he said they would have their office get the surgery scheduled and everything. Only his office never sent the imaging, never did anything to get anything set up for a surgery. And 2 months after that first appointment was my first visit to the emergency department. Thankfully, I have 2 hospitals in close proximity to me, so I was able to decide to go to the other hospital and not the one that neurosurgeon was affiliated with, because it was their doctors that were repeatedly failing me. First time I ended up in the emergency department, I was sent home with some meds and some pain relief, which lasted only about a few days. By the end of that week, I could no longer walk, sit, stand. I was barely making it 20 feet from the sofa to the bathroom and back again. I ended up having 2 stroke-like incidents, which told me that the vertebrae was at times cutting off blood flow to my brain. I was still working remotely, but having to do so from a laying down position. And I was mentally wishing that my life would end just to stop the pain, because that's how severe it was. Within a week of that first emergency department visit, I told my mother, "You have to call 911. You can't bring me to the emergency department this time. I can't get to the car. I can't sit to get there. I need a gurney. And I need to go to the emergency room." So she did. They ended up calling a second ambulance because they were afraid I needed some medications en route to the emergency department. I was held in the emergency department for 48 hours while they worked to get me on a medication cycle to help ease the pain enough to the point where I wasn't wishing to die. Not because I wanted to, but because that's how severe it was. And they also referred me to a neurosurgeon affiliated with their hospital. Again, thankfully, I was still able to continue working from home, and doing so was actually helping me refocus my attention to some degree as much as possible. And on May 28th or 29th, I went in to see the new neurosurgeon. because of my severe condition, that night she had me admitted to the hospital. Next day, I had emergency spine surgery. And my spine surgery, which normally takes a maximum of 3.5 hours, took over 5 because the herniation had been so severe and had been left unaddressed for so long by the multiple caregivers that I had sought help from, that it had become calcified in my body, and it took her and her attending to get it out and resolved. But I could walk, and I was in a lot less severe pain than I was before. And I will tell you, the new employer was fantastic. They were allowed me to be more flexible because I needed at-home care for, I want to say, about a month and a half to 2 months. After that, I had 3 times a week nurse. I had 3 times a week physical therapy and 2 times a week osteopathic therapy. I had a lot of stuff going on, but I was still working. I was still putting in overtime and still like able to get work done that needed to be done. Much to the shock of all of us, including my employer, I didn't need to take actual time off because I was working from home. It ended up being a blessing. The lab here was still technically open and operating, but I wasn't physically able to go there, but I was able to work remotely from home. And my coworkers, who I'd been working with for a very long time, were amazing at picking up the slack that usually I did, that I wasn't able to do because I couldn't get to work. I'd been told the date that the lab here was closing, so I had my mother drive me over so I could pick up my stuff that was still in the office, because I didn't know that the last day I had gone to work was the last day I was going to work. So I had to go pick up my belongings. And thankfully, my coworkers helped carry things into the car because I still wasn't able to carry much of anything. And we said goodbye to each other in person. They were, as far as I knew, extended to at least August, but one of them had secured a permanent role at a much lower rate than she was making before. About, when I say a much lower rate, it was like 50% of what her normal salary was. But she had secured that position for after the lab closed up here. So she would be able to work from home at that lower rate. And she's still there. I had been doing in the meantime everything I could to try to save jobs for all of us, and that's something even my previous boss acknowledged. She's like, I saw what you were doing and I wish they had followed your lead and listened to you, but he's like, I couldn't tell them that. He's like, but once one like fell off like it was like a domino effect, everybody else followed suit. He's like, I knew what you were doing, I saw it. And I was like, somebody had to. I was trying. Didn't work. Um But I knew I at least had a job until the end of 2025. Well, come mid-end December, I had a follow-up with them because I've still been doing physical therapy. I've still been taking each day as I can. I still have flare-ups. I still have issues going on. But I have a different physical therapist in the same office that I was, not because I didn't like my previous one, but she had to relocate. And the exercises that the new therapist has been giving me have been helping. My last appointment with my neurosurgeon is sometime this month in May, because it will be about a year post-op. And in late December, I had a meeting with HR. They said we're going to extend you 3 months, but starting about early mid January, we're going to put you on 15 hours a week. So I panicked. I got my notary public done because I was like, I need to find a way to make up the money loss, because I was paid hourly, not salary. I also became aware that that meant come February I would lose health insurance. So I had to figure out what I was going to do for that. Thankfully, I was still going to have my severance pay, but at my full-time rate, not my part-time rate. And that has been helping me exponentially. But yeah, as of April 1st, I've not had a job. Now, in the meantime, I did see what opportunities were available at the company I was working for, but simultaneously, I knew I did not want to stay there because I don't, you know, I think I mentioned that I had applied for VAO and I pegged that they were supportive of certain policies. I was noticing the same support from that company. And seeing who their customers and everything were, and what government agencies and companies they had as customers and who they were backing and things the CEO said, I was like, I don't really want to continue working for them. So yeah, technically, they wanted me to apply for a job, a full-time job, at $20 an hour. And I know that sounds really good, but it doesn't sound as good when you were making over $30 an hour. Before that, that's huge income loss. Plus, part of the health insurance and everything comes out of your paycheck, so that's an additional expense. Yes, you earn PTO, yes, you do all of these things, but in the meantime, I had also been looking for ways to utilize my notary in a job. Now, I know that there are certain fields in high demand. Bookkeeping is in high demand. And another field that is in high demand right now, because a lot of the people who are in this field that are aging out and retiring, is court reporting. So if you are able to find a school or you are able to take coursework to become a court reporter, and you feel that that is a job that you might like to do, your typing has to be relatively fast. You have to have an attention to detail. You have to have a certain decorum. And pass like background check, all of that kind of stuff. I would recommend looking at going into court reporting if you can. Now, I am sort of. Technically, my job is not a court reporter. I'm not going to work for a court system. I am working for a service that does something similar. I'm not going to mention the company or exactly what I'm doing, at least why it's not right now. But I will tell you the way that I'm having to go about this is more expensive than you might experience yourself. It may or may not. I've had to go through a course to learn how to do the job that I'm doing. Sorry, my dog's in the room. I've had to get my certification, which is another expense. I had to register my business because I realized in this time frame that I had registered it incorrectly. I didn't have the setup done the right way. I have all of these things have cost hundreds of dollars with each thing. Then registering with the certification professional board. Then I had to buy all the materials for my kit to go out in the field and do this work, which was over $1,600. The only reason why I've been able to do all of this is because I have severance pay. I know not everybody is as fortunate as I am. But if this is a field that you are considering going into, know that it is something that at this time is not on the block for being replaced by AI. It is in very high demand globally. All right? Globally. Not just here in the States. And it may be something you may want to look into. All right? If you are looking to formulate your own business, there is a national agency called SCORE, score.org, SCORE.org. They are completely free. They have free courses and classes you can take to get affiliated with what you need to do to set up a business. They have mentors that you can get aligned with who can help guide you on what you need to do to set up your business. Right now, we are all in survivor mode, and regardless of what field you go into, setting up your own business, if you can, may be the way that you have to go. I had the foresight to know that I might struggle to find a job given the physical condition I'm in right now. And because of that, I went the route of going into business for myself and becoming an independent contractor, especially if I was going to be doing food delivery or anything of that nature. None of that has taxes taken out of it, so you needed to set up a business account for that money to go into. All of that. I have to get an accountant. You have to get business insurance. You have to at least get BOP insurance, which is like small business insurance. Depending on the nature of the work that you do, you may also need cybersecurity insurance or cyber insurance. If you're going into a specified field like notary, that also has an additional insurance you have to do for errors and omissions if you make a mistake. So these are all expenses to keep in mind. Do a lot of research before you just go into business for yourself. It may be better not to register a business at all and to just do what you can freelance to get by for now, if you physically can. I hope we're all able to get through this and through however long it takes for things to get better with as little impact as possible. That's my hope. I'm not saying it's going to happen, but I hope we all make it through this. All right. So I just wanted to give you guys my own experience in job loss. One of my regular commenters and someone supports my channel for a very long time, who's actually a friend of mine in real life, Stephanie. She can actually tell you at one point I had started a GoFundMe because I had a big financial concern issue going on, and ultimately I canceled the GoFundMe and everybody's money was returned back to them without me accepting any of the money. Thankfully, that issue was resolved without the need of the GoFundMe, but getting through the last few months has been very difficult. Not being able to pay your bills is challenging, and it's devastating when you have collection agencies calling you, when you have people constantly harassing you for money that you don't have. It's stressful and it's hard. So if you're in the position to help, I ask you to please be patient with those of us who may need it. Alright? Take care, guys. I hope this finds you well. And I hope we get through this as much as we can. Alright? Hang in there. Take care. Bye for now.